Yeah, my name is Phil, and I am an artist, singer, and performer, and yeah, I've got a show coming up. It's called 24/7 Live, and it's basically the title of one of my songs called 24/7 on my EP, and basically we're doing it live. So it's pretty much like a straightforward title, but it's basically about how we package ourselves like day to day, and how we sort of view our identity and gender and what impacts that has on our relationships. The beginning of the show is pretty much like songs that deal with my relationships, and then we go further like universally, and then we look at the gender codes and everything within a pop show, so it's really fun. Performing makes me feel fab. Like, I love performing, but more importantly, I guess, I love creating work and having a form of expression. I remember like when, like years ago, there was like, someone said to me, there's like 4 main drives for like life and stuff. You can either be money, career, love, or expression. And which ones like do you find like resonate more? And I was like, expression. Like, I was like, totally, like, if there's something that you want to say, then that's the way to do it. And yeah, so performing is part of that.
So how did you get into performing in the first place?
Performing, I think it was from watching Kylie Minogue videos when I was little, and watching her do like silly videos like in a bathtub like this, like going, I should be so lucky, and that sort of like got me into the performing mode, I guess, and then it was a case of like carrying on singing, and I've always been singing as a kid. Like, I guess my parents were like, you should do a proper job or find somewhere that you could do like performing as more of like a set thing, like musicals and stuff. So then I ended up doing that for a bit at school, but then I got really bored. And then I was like, got so bored that I was like, I'm gonna go to art school and completely do something different instead. And then, so I started learning ceramics and sculpture and how to sort of express like ideas, but in like that type of sculptural form. And then before I knew it, it started involving music again and performative ceramics. And then I started going, fuck, I just really enjoy the music, and like and a way that music can bring everything together, like visually, on stage, performance, conceptually, narrative, stories, all that I love, and that's how I bring it together now. I remember a conversation that I had with my mum where we were sat in like a living room, and I told her about like my first ever audition I was going to do, and she goes, do you seriously want to do this, because it is 6 months of like your life, whatever, and it was for the job, and I was like, yeah, I want this to be my life. And then she's like, well, as long as you're happy, then that's fine, like we won't stop you doing it. And that's really sweet. And I think maybe because I was the youngest one out of the family, that they've seen other sisters go do creative things and turn it into a job that can work. Although now, like, they're saying, they're like, how come we haven't spoken to you for so long? And I'm like, well, because we're really busy trying to put the show together. I've been working really hard all the time. It's like, oh my god, if you're working so hard, that must mean you bring loads of money in. It's like, huh? It's like, that does not equate the same. Like,
what's your like sexual orientation?
I identify as gay.
You identify as gay. And with your pronouns is...
With possibilities.
Okay, that's cool. So you're gay with possibilities. And your gender identity, what gender do you?
I go by boy or man, yeah.
Okay.
Purely because I think that term is so restrictive.
What term?
Man, like to be a man, and that type of idea, that like, if I could just do or eradicate that type of idea. So when people sort of like say, like ask me in public or anything, or if like, I'm in the wrong toilets, this is like for gentlemen, and I'm like, I'm a man. And I'm trying to like just readdress the notion of what it is, because I do personally feel quite fluid, but it's easier like in a way to sort of redefine that box that like has been so oppressive, that if I could just take away its sides somehow and then turn it into something else, and I think that's what I'm trying to do. When you're growing up, you're still finding out who you are, and I think when you don't have the reference points as such to sort of like be your guiding light, it's slightly hard, so you're just sort of fumbling around in the dark until like, and I think I only really began to sort of understand who I wanted to become, like when I moved to London and like sort of like see like people and experience things, and because back up north it was like my only escapism was magazines and stuff, and like being able to like go, oh, that's like world that I'd love to like have it one day, and I guess like, so I was always expressive up north, but it was more when I came here that it was like boom, I know what I want to do. So yeah.
So you felt sort of a sense of freedom when you moved to London?
Yes, and I felt like then I could be liberated in the way that I wanted to express myself. That I think when I was up north, I just felt stifled and I didn't know why, that something wasn't right, that the environment around me was not as fruitful, and I didn't know why, and I was like, because it's actually my relation to that environment is what the issue was, because it was shaping me rather than being allowed to do something else.
So what's the gay like community like in Huddersfield?
There's like 1 or 2 pubs.
I love that you're like, no, one or two. So is it really a scene then?
There might be like 1 pub. There isn't really a scene. No, Huddersfield's like, because everybody in Huddersfield just go to Leeds, and Leeds has got like an alleyway, which has got a few more pubs and clubs. Like, so it's near like a bridge, and like, so Leeds has got a bit more like Queen's Court, there's like different things like that. So I think people in Huddersfield just go to that or Manchester as their 2 sort of like gay villages. So in Huddersfield there was like, when I was there was only 1 pub really. And I remember like the first time that I went into it, I went with my friend, and who's a lesbian, and like we both like, oh, what do we do? We're gonna go in here, and then like, and we got our drinks, and mine was like this really sugary, colourful, like awful thing, and then like, and this Chinese guy comes over to me, and he's slightly older, and he was like, oh, is this your first time here? I was like, yeah, and he's like, oh, cool, what's your name? I was like, Phil, and he's like, oh, that's funny, my name's Phil too. And I was like, no, this isn't happening. This isn't my future me come to see me. and then I was like, that was so jokes. That was my first experience of that pub, and I was like, oh yeah, that's so funny. So I stayed chatting to like Philip for a while, because in Huddersfield it's so rare that there's Chinese people and gay Chinese people, that to find the only other one with the same name was just like hilarious. So in Huddersfield, pretty much the Chinese community was based around my family. So like when my granddad moved over, he pretty much sort of set the community up, and then like people sort of navigated towards it, because it wasn't very big, and Huddersfield didn't have any like Chinese takeaways when like they first came over and stuff. So they came over and set that up, and then it became, so the community sort of grew from that. But and in that sense, then it's quite a strong sense of tradition as well, because yeah, my granddad came over, and then my dad wasn't born here still, he came over to follow his dad, so it became this like tradition of just bringing the next like generation in. So definitely very much the first generation to be born here, and definitely feel it in Huddersfield. And like you say, like that thing of, so yeah, you've got the race, and then you've got the like sexuality, and then on top of that you do art. And then like on top of that you grow your hair, and then it's like this multi-layered thing of like, this isn't what we thought we'd like have, but that's what is good about shaking things up, I think. And yeah, there's always like lots of tradition that you sort of come up against, and there's a bit of friction, but I think my family have been super supportive in terms of what well, as supportive as they can be in terms of how I can express myself.
When you came out to them, were they surprised?
Yeah.
Really?
But the thing is, like, yeah, because they, I guess when they think that someone does creative work, that sort of, that they just thought it was a flamboyant way of being creative, and I think, and so it's, yeah, so to them it was, and they don't, I mean, we don't talk, I mean, like, I never talk about sex with my parents anyway, so it's, do you? So there's, so it, like, and I knew I was gay from an early age, so there was never an opportunity to sort of like say, by the way. So then they never really sort of grew up thinking about it because it wasn't just a thing that we talked to each other about until the point where I was like, I think I need to tell them. I told my sisters, and it's just like unfair that like they don't know. So I told them, and they're like, oh, okay. And then even now, like when we go to restaurants with my parents and stuff, and my dad bumps into his friends and stuff, they're like, this is Phil, he does art. The advice that I would give myself, like when I was younger, would be to follow your gut instinct, and because it's usually right, and that's in terms of like everything, because especially when you're gay, especially when you're double guessing where you fit in everywhere, and sort of like, well, I don't fit in that crowd, I shouldn't do this, I shouldn't because I'm part of that. Then no, if you want to do it, I think you should go do it and follow your heart and follow your gut instinct, because if you don't do it, you'll get more depressed and oppressed about following your dreams and stuff. So I think you should always just follow what it says there and go for it.